Align and Awaken with Mother Earth Rising podcast. Let's rise and heal together with me, Pippa, your Mother Earth healer. I'm just really excited to talk to you. So let me pronounce your name right. It's Solala.
No, Solala.
Solala.
Accent on the so. There you go. Yeah.
Thank you for correcting me. I found you on Insight Timer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I remember searching on Google, learn more about the Tao. And we obviously get into how I came across the Tao, but I really wanted to talk to you today because you're probably the first westernized person that I have come across that is a practicing Daoist. And I'm new to the Tao, but it speaks to my soul. It speaks to my soul. The values it carries is the values I've always carried, kindness, gentleness, service to others, reverence for all life. They're the things that I've always lived by and tried to live by. So when I was reading, I haven't actually read the original Tao. I've read Wayne Dyer's version of the Tao, which that's how I came across it. But I'm really intrigued to find out about your journey and how you came across the Tao, because I know you've obviously traveled. You're well traveled too, and you're obviously from the western part of America. So I know my audience are really intrigued by the Tao because, again, it's westernized, but not as enough as it should be, I think.
Well, these ideas, these practices, these principles that people created thousands of years ago in China are universal. So whether you're from Europe or America or South America, wherever you're from, Tao is still the Tao for everyone. It's the same Tao. And we have the same body. So doing these sort of Qigong and Tai Chi practices, we're going to have the same effect as anyone else. And there's, of course, cultural differences. But actually in the West, we culturally are more free than people in a lot of places in Asia, where they can't really express a lot of these things that we get to very freely. And I grew up in New England. I was a child of the 60s, very fortunate, born in 1950. And the 60s was an amazing, magical time where people were discovering new ideas, new experiences, new music, new art, and also new spiritual paths. And so I have always been drawn to Eastern philosophy and started doing yoga in 1968 and meditation. And there wasn't no Taoism going on in Boston back then. So it was yoga and meditation. And I did that for many years and then followed the Zen Buddhist path also for years. And there was something about the Zen, the Japanese form of Zen to me felt there was a rigidity there that I didn't enjoy. And then a little over 30 years ago, I ran into a book on Taoism, and it was something like something you said earlier. I felt like I was coming home. Yeah. And these ideas that you also mentioned of really enjoying and learning from nature. The Taoists say nature is the best teacher, better than any book, even Taoist books. Nature is the best teacher. And also about being in your body in a solid way and being connected to the earth as a living being, all those kinds of things, and being flexible, being in the moment, going with the flow. We called it in the 60s, and the Taoists call it the watercourse way. Same thing. So it's helped my life so much. And health challenges that I've had and stuff, I've been able to use these principles and practices. It made a huge difference in my life. Yeah. So it's not just something I read about. It's something that I actually practice in my life.
Yeah, I read a quote last week and it really sat with me. And it was about, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. A lot of people ask me, what does it mean? Why have you become a practicing Taoist? What does it mean? And I say, it's using the eyes, because again, my favorite quote from the Tao is the Tao that can be named is not the Tao, because you can't name something that is everywhere. It's just, and that's kind of the thing that really resonated with me with the Tao, is because as I said before we started the podcast, the values it carries through the Tao I read through Wayne Dyer the values it carries just spoke to my heart. It really did. And I've always been a kind, compassionate and loving person on my journey. I've had my challenges and I've had, my growth, and I'm still 30. I'm 31 soon. So I've got a lot. I'm very wise for my years, but I feel the kindness, the gentleness, the reverence for all life, the service to others. I've always wanted to serve. I've always wanted to, I love animals. I love nature. And so does my partner. So when we were reading the Tao, and my partner's read the original Tao, it just speaks volumes. And then when you try and explain it, I mean, I don't know if you came across this when you first kind of came across the Tao. It is quite hard to explain to people in that does it justice, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like I don't do it justice enough. So embodying the Tao for me is the best way to show people what it's about. And it is about nature. We're all a part of the same energy, and it lives within all of us.
Just last night, I've been teaching a weekly class on Tao Te Ching for almost 2.5 years now, since way before COVID. And I was mentioning that very phrase that a master, what you call a real master, is not just someone who knows, whether it's a Buddhist master, a Taoist master, a yogi master. It's not just that they know all this stuff, but they actually embody it in their very being. And you get something from them, a transmission from them that goes beyond words. That phrase, Dao Ke Dao, Fei Chang Dao, the Dao that can be expressed in words or defined and put in a little box of what it is. It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And that's the very first line of the whole Tao Te Ching, which I love.
It is. Yeah. It kind of opens it up with a bam. It's like, boom, this is the Tao. And it's really, I mean, when I read Wayne's version, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, I could understand it better because obviously I don't know if you've read Wayne's book, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. Yeah. Yes.
It
was easier for me to understand it that way. So I am glad I took that, but I do want to read the original. And I just, there's something about the Tao, and obviously it's a lifelong thing. You can, again, people, I say it's not a religion as per se. It's just, it's a way of life. It's the great way. And what I find really fascinating is my nan passed away 4 years ago, and my granddad passed away a month ago. So I've kind of don't have any grandparents left, but my nan was quite religious, and one of her favorite songs was Frank Sinatra, My Way. And just the My Way song was, really hits me when I hear it. I think of my nan, and I remember she used to say to me, do it Pip's way, obviously my real name's Philippa. So she go, Philip, do it Philippa's way. And I go, all right. Okay. So for years I was like, you got to live your path as long as you're not hurting others, follow your path. And then the book that I'm wanting to write, which I haven't finished yet because I'm procrastinating, is The Girl Who Found Her Way. And that name came to me years ago. Nice. But then when I found the Tao, and the translation is The Great Way, I just feel it really combines well. So it's quite interesting that I think now I'm really stepping into Taoism and I'm learning more. I'm embodying it. I think it will help me to write the book.
Yeah. Well, the phrase we use in Taoism for like an enlightened person or a self-realized person is Zhenren. And Zhenren means authentic person.
Yeah.
So someone who is in touch with who they really are in an authentic way, and then expresses that in an authentic way. That's very high level, but that's the high level in Taoism.
That's what I try to live by every day is be authentic to who you are, as long as you're being compassionate and loving. Yeah. And I feel, knowledge that I gain should be shared, and wisdom that I gain should be shared. And, that's why I do feel very wise for my years. I was very old soul. I'm a very old soul. But like I said, Taoism just, obviously like Buddhism and those kind of religions, they do still resonate. They're very, very peaceful and very, but obviously Taoism, as I said, isn't a religion. And, I think when religion gets involved, whether you agree with this, religion can make it more complicated, especially with the ego.
Definitely.
The ego can be like, well, I believe this and you believe this. So the Tao is the original way. It's like I say to clients, the Tao is connecting you back to your original nature. And that is nature,
Well, there actually is a religious form of Taoism.
Okay.
Originally, when Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching 2,500 years ago, there was nothing called Taoism. People weren't Daoists. They were just people that follow the natural way. And then about 1,000 years later, some people in China started forming this Taoist religion, and they have monks and nuns and temples and monasteries, and it's called Daozhou. But the original form, Daojia, is the one that I follow. Some people call it philosophical Taoism or classical Taoism. It's not the religious part, because the religious part, as you were saying, is very complicated.
Yeah.
And that's not what most people in the West are interested in.
Yeah, it's the benefits of the Tao. It's how you feel when you connect to Tao. And like you said, Tao, people say, you know, Tao is the universe, Tao is source, Tao is God. You know, what you call it, again, doesn't matter. And I want to deepen my knowledge with Tao, but I think, you know, starting to embody it at an early age of 30 is, you know, I think where I'm going to be in 10 years and then 20 years. So coming across someone as wise as you is an honor. And it's, you know, finding someone who, because obviously Wayne, I know he passed 6 years ago, and I love his work. He's one of my big spiritual teachers. So I want to ask you, obviously you found the Tao. So how has it impacted your life? Like, what has been some of the challenges that kind of the Tao helped you with?
Well, just recently, just a few years ago, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, which is the second biggest killer of men, and I had to have surgery and everything, and which is, you know, it's all very scary and stuff. But I felt like my real self, my authentic self, was going to be okay no matter what. And so I didn't. And earlier, when I was younger, I would have just been terrified the whole time. But I was able to remain calm and just feel like it's going to work out. Whatever way it works out is going to be, I am going to be fine. Yeah. So that helped me a lot, you know. And my teacher that I first discovered, I studied with many teachers. Ching is his name, N-I. He has a lot of really great books, and he's 102 now. So
oh wow,
I met with him, and then I've gone to China 9 times, and I lead groups there and study with teachers there as well. And can I mention one of my books?
Yes, of course. Mention whatever you want.
Well, this book, if you can see it well, is my version of Tao Te Ching, which you might want to look at.
Yes, I will, definitely.
It was published by a company here in America called Sounds True that do a lot of really great spiritual books. And what makes this book very different is a lot of people think of Tao Te Ching as a book of philosophy, but to the Taoist perspective, it's a book on what we call a manual for self-cultivation, spiritual work. And if you know how to read it correctly, there's a lot of spiritual practices. So I did my version. I don't call it translation because I'm not translating from classical Chinese, like Wayne didn't translate from Chinese either. But I've been studying this for many years. I have many copies, many different translations. And so I have the verse, and then I have an explanation to what it means. And then what makes it really unique is I have a practice that goes every chapter. Yeah. So there's 81 practices, simple Qigong meditation lifestyle practices with every one of the chapters.
And that's the best bit. That is the best bit, and it's amazing.
Well, it's what makes it, because Taoism is not something you can just read about and say, okay, now I understand it because I read a whole bunch of books. You need to bring it into your life, apply it to your life, and also do Qigong or Tai Chi, some practice where you feel it in your body as well.
That's what I've been drawn to, is about the movement. I know yoga kind of helps that, but again, like one thing that I read a couple of weeks ago was about when you try to understand something, you're never going to understand everything. So, you know that I could get to my 60s and 70s of your age and be like, I don't completely understand the Tao fully, but that's okay, because it's a constant the Tao for me is a journey. It's not a destination. It's not I'm great, I'm a full Taoist now and that's it. As you know, it's a journey. It's incredible. And one thing you just said that really resonated was when I'm going through a challenge. You know, I lost my nan 4 years ago, and that was very different to my granddad a month ago. I was spiritual back then when I lost my nan, but just something feel different with my granddad. It was more of an acceptance. It was more of, he's home. You know, I don't know if you've seen the movie No Solar. That movie's
The which movie?
Solala.
Nasola.
Yeah, it's a Brazilian movie. My partner Chris.
Brazilian.
Yeah, but I think it translates into Astral City. It's on Amazon Prime.
I'll look it up.
Yeah,
write it down.
Chris, my partner, got me to watch that, and it's a really powerful movie. It's about, the afterlife and where we go out, where we go and we die and things like that, and it resonates. So I'd watched that, and I lost my granddad, and I just thought, wow, he's in that place. He's in, and I think you have to grieve. You have to have a human experience. You have to feel into the loss, feel into, and that's what I've done. And I think I'm really proud that like I said, I feel calm with things. Like you said, 5 years ago, I'd be having a meltdown. I'd be like, oh my God, if I had a challenge, I'd think, and my ego would take over and I'd just be having a meltdown. But now I think, well, this is happening for me. I've asked for this, and it, especially with soul contracts and things. And the Tao has such a spiritual aspect to it. Again, it's the original way. So that's why it would make sense to you when you do take on the different verses.
Yeah, the character Tao means way, a road or a path. It also means the one who walks on that path. And it's also a verb meaning walking on the path. So it's an idea of movement. So we're all on our own path. But, going back briefly to this thing about authentic, many, if not most people, have no idea who they are authentically. Yeah. And they don't even think about that. They're just thinking about going to work, coming home, eating dinner, watching TV, going to bed, going to work, watching. So, they don't have a big interior life. So that when you do have big challenges in your life, if you don't have an interior life, you don't have anything to fall back on. I mean, it was in my parents' generation, people were more serious churchgoers, and at least they had that. They could talk to the priest, or they had a belief in God or whatever, or Jesus, to help them through that. But a lot of people have fallen away from that way of thinking now. And Taoism is different because there's no personalized Godhead. There's no big deity in the sky who's looking at you and watching every minute of every day and punishing and rewarding. That was just the way. It's just the universe that creates itself and sustains itself. And we are all a part of it. And sometimes I translate it as source with a capital S.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And I was just about to say, when you were talking about people not knowing who they are, it's the awareness. I always say to my clients I work with is that, the key is awareness. When you heighten your awareness, you start, again, as I know Wayne mentioned, a quantum shift. It's very similar. It's you just see the world differently. And when you find the Tao, I think the Tao really helped with that, because it makes you think, okay, so, and obviously I think everyone will find, if they're meant to find the Tao in this life, they will. It may be another life. They may have already found the Tao in a previous life, but I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful, and I want to dive deeper into the Tao. And obviously I'm definitely going to get your book, because again, it's the different versions of the Tao. It's, there's going to be, I may do a version of the Tao in my later years, who knows? So I just think the true essence behind what it teaches is what I think the world needs more of right now, especially with what's been going on. And I don't know about you, Solala. It's like the heaviness of the world. I feel that there has been more awakenings. I feel there's a lot of people waking up, but I don't know if you feel that heaviness as well.
Oh yeah, it's both. It's yin yang. It's always moving. It's always transforming. The Ching, which you may have heard of, is an ancient divination book, 6,000 years old, and it's called the Book of Changes. It's also called the Book of Transformations, because the world is transforming. We are transforming from day to day, moment to moment even. And then when you live even as long as I have, you see a lot of transformations happening. And sometimes it's very challenging, and sometimes it's very scary, but you have to stay true to your path, to your way. Because he didn't even Lao Tzu. Now Lao Tzu, who wrote Tao Te Ching, the original author, Lao Tzu is a title. It's not like his name was not Mr. Tzu. Lao
Yeah.
Tzu means old master.
Okay.
But what's really interesting is the character Tzu, master, can also mean child. So sometimes you translate his name as the old boy or the old child.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea of becoming a child to enter the kingdom of heaven, and those ideas of not being childish, but retaining childlikeness of being excited about life.
Yeah, it's like
right?
the whole, but then that connect to the whole aspect of some of the work I do of, we all have trauma. We have an inner child. We have an inner child that wants to be heard, that wants to be seen. So with you saying that, it's to remain childlike throughout life, because again, there's these expectations in society of grow up, be a man, all these different things.
Right.
And you take on, you have this role, but I think that's all shedding away in this new world coming now. We're, as you said, women are more powerful than they were 100 years ago. And the childlike's really, I didn't know that. So thank you, because that's what I connect my clients to. It's the childlike. What I still do my childish things because it makes me feel good. I watch Disney. I love Disney. I'm a Disney fanatic. So I really like that. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that.
And the other thing that he talks about a lot is flexibility. He says when a plant is young, it's very bendy and flexible. As a plant gets older, it becomes very dry and brittle and breaks easy. And so a lot of people, when we're young, we're all happy children. And then we get, like you say, as we get older, we have to become serious adults. And then people become rigid in their thinking. They don't want to hear new ideas. They don't want to go to new places. And they're easily broken. But to keep that idea of flexibility in your life, you can be, it's called forever spring is a Chinese term. So you're forever young, no matter how old you are.
Reminds me of the song. But I think.
Oh, yeah. Bob Dylan?
I think it is, yeah. Yeah.
May you stay forever young.
Yeah.
Who knew Bob Dylan was writing these Taoist songs?
Yeah. I think one of my favorite parts of the Tao is about flowing like water, because again, I like the references to nature because again, as you said, nature is our biggest teacher. And I always, my partner, Chris, he's got a science kind of background. So he calls himself the spiritual scientist because he has the science element to it. He's great. He'll love to chat to you at some point. So he read a book called The Secret Therapy of Trees, and we came across. Have you read that?
Well, it's called The Secret Life of Trees, I think.
Yeah,
right?
It's
about how trees communicate and how they're a community.
I've not read it, but he found it in Glastonbury down south from where we live, and I remember it talks about the scientific studies with trees and how they can lower cortisol, how they can elevate energy, and forest bathing. Forest bathing is a big hobby of mine. I'm always in nature. I have a beautiful black Labrador dog who I'm out with a couple of times a day, and I've had some really amazing experiences in nature. I had a quantum shift last year where actually Mother Earth presented herself to me in nature. That in itself was a beautiful experience, and I'm grateful I didn't have my phone with me because I wasn't meant to have my phone. I was just meant to experience, the magic of the planet. And I love how it connects to nature because, again, with Chris, he has to have kind of not evidence, but he's got that evidence brain. So he knows being in nature is hands down the most healing thing. One of the things people say to me is, "Oh, Pip, what's part of your spiritual practice?" And I'll say nature. And what's it's sad about this society now, because I'm probably one of those culprits, is I love playing my games, so I like playing on the PlayStation. That's one of the things I've grown up with. But there's balance, yin and yang. So I will have extra time in nature. I'll definitely get out more. But again, the kids of our day, they want to stay indoors all day and play on games. So
no, that's sad. When I grew up in the 50s, we were outside all day. We just go out, maybe come in for a sandwich and then go back out again. And that's it. But, you mentioned the watercourse way. One of the other main principles of that is water. If you put it in a round container, the water becomes round. put it in a square container, it becomes square because it's very adaptable. And so how can we be as adaptable? Sometimes we're in a situation we're not that comfortable in, and we say, well, I don't like it here. This isn't my way or something, but you fight it. And if you were more adaptable like water, oh, I can find a way to be okay here. And I can find a way to be okay there, and become flexible and adaptable. All those things is a big part of the Taoist way.
Yeah, it is. And I think for me, it's about flow and ease. I think as humans, it's the control. It's just letting that control go, because I think, again, there's so much to it. You could talk about this for hours and days. As a child, we have an unlimited mind, and then we get it condensed as we get older, and then we become rigid, and it's but I don't know about you, but Taoism should be taught in schools, because it's like it's for children to understand that nature is key for our path. I think for me, it's the nature part of the Tao is the bit that I resonate with the most, because the way I feel in nature, and with obviously every element, you think of the air, the water, the fire, like every single element is needed, fire so we can eat. If we didn't have fire, we couldn't have cooked anything to be able to eat. The water is for our, to drink. The earth, so it carries seeds, and obviously the earth is for the growth and for food as well. So you just start to see nature in a different light. You do start to see it differently, and you start to appreciate, especially from my partner's point of view, he's in conservation. You think about the circle of life. If a species goes out extinct, people don't realize it affects the species that eats it and the species that it eats. So, and even the simple things as trees, they offer shade. It's like people don't think about that. Trees are phenomenal for so many things, and especially for the oxygen for the planet too. But it's when you start to see the world like that, it's mind-blowing.
And it makes you want to be more conserving of nature. It makes you want to identify and say, whoa, we need this. It's not just so that we can take a little vacation or something. We need it for our life. And now scientists are discovering that trees communicate with each other through their root systems. And there's a whole world underground that most people have no idea about. And they actually will send energy from one tree to another when it gets sick. I mean, there's some amazing stuff that's coming out now.
I've just got goosebumps.
Yeah. And, Zhuangzi, after Lao Tzu, the next big of the ancient Taoist teachers, is a fellow called Chuang. And in his book, he talks about, and this is true, a lot of native tribal people say the same thing. There was a time long ago that people could speak to animals, and animals could speak to humans in a language that they understood, and people could speak to trees, and trees could speak back. And there wasn't this idea of, well, I am a human being, the apex of all creation. You are just a lowly animal or plant or tree. It was like, he said the ancient people didn't make distinctions, is the word he uses. And then people started making distinctions. Well, I'm a human, you're just a plant. We can't possibly communicate. And he said that's when Tao was lost. That's when that connection was lost to us and the natural world. Yeah. That we are also part of nature ourselves, but we've lost that connection that we want to reconnect.
Yeah, that's why it's about the original nature, what I'm intrigued about, and I want to kind of dive into this, before Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, before that, was it still around, or did it come in
Tao Te Ching, he wrote that 2,500 years ago, and he often refers to the ancient teachers, the ancient masters. So, and it goes back to shamanism in China, called Wu shamans, which were mostly women, and there's a lot of aspects of shamanism in Taoism, this veneration of nature and water, and looking, even in Chinese medicine, they would watch animals. When an animal got sick or injured, what plant did they go and eat? Yeah. And how do animals move, and how do animals kind of, like, you see a dog when it doesn't usually just flop down on the floor, but a lot of times it makes like a little circle. And animals build their nests out that way. And, you know, it's all about circles and really identifying, or the whole round of nature, spring, summer, fall, winter.
Well, it's the oneness, isn't it? It's like,
yeah, it's a circle of life, as you were saying earlier, which is from a Disney movie, right?
Yes.
The great circle of life, which is
Lion King.
We believe. Yes. Yes.
And when you mentioned the natives, Pocahontas is a big favorite of mine too. You know, the natives that lived, you know, I know a lot of shamans, and I believe I was a medicine woman in a past life. I've connected to that kind of I've not done a past life regression with that life yet, but I do think shamanism will come into my life when I'm meant to take it on board. Right now, I am just helping humanity understand their ego's true purpose, because I think people don't realize what it is and what its purpose is. And I know you will know about the ego, and Wayne says it was edging God out. So it's kind of edging Tao out. So I resonate with that, and it really does help me. And I think, I don't know if you've seen my work, but I transform ego to Tao. So I get people to, you know, connect to their ego, you know they have an ego, and then, you know, bring the Tao into it, which I think really complements the two. You know, again, the ego came from survival in nature. You know, it came from, you know, when we were cavemen and there was saber tooth out there, the ego was for survival. And we now put ego to things that don't, you know, how much I earn, how many friends I've got, how big my house is, what car I drive. But then if we connect back to the original nature, it's like, well, I'm the same as you and you're the same as me. And I go outside that tree, you're no lower or higher than me. We're all exactly the same. Yeah. It's beautiful. I love it. I could talk to you for hours about it. So what's one of your most favorite quotes from the Tao?
One is the sage, who's like the enlightened person. She says, she returns people to their childlike hearts. And then other one in chapter 20, he's saying, most people in the world, they know what they're doing. They're getting what they want. They really seem like they're in charge of their life. And I appear kind of dull and stupid to them. But at the end, he says, but I am different from the others because I am nurtured by the Great Mother.
God, that made me go like a bit teary. Wow.
Yeah, that's a good one.
God,
chapter 20. So between those two. And they use, you know, Taoism, he says, know the yang, but hold to the yin. Because the yang is that sort of, everyone, it's not male, female. It's just yang energy is about outward going, creative, fiery, spontaneous. And the yin is more reflective, quiet, calm, more connected to the earth. And that we have a lot of yang in the world. We don't need more yang. What we need is more yin to balance the yang. And of course, you know, they're both very important. You don't want to stop one or the other, but the world is so full of yangs, you know, all these wars and political things. It's all about yang. How can I control other people? How can I be wildly successful myself?
Powerful.
How can I have millions of followers on TikTok
online
online and everything? And it's really we need more time to be reflective. We need more time to connect.
Well, that's one thing. People find silence, they're fearful of silence, because that's where you find everything. You know, in silence, that's where everything comes to light. It comes from the Tao. And this is why I think people don't understand that we're all gifted to that. You know, we can, I mean, I'm sure you channel, I'm sure you can connect to guides, spirits, you know, we all have that within us because we're all part of it. It's within our cells. It's around us. It's everywhere here. So I think you might resonate with this. There's a lot of stuff out there in the spiritual world that is about, oh, you know, I have this psychic gift and I have this psychic gift. Well, I have this gift. And it's like, and then again, that creates divide. So I say to people, I've written about it recently, is that we're all gifted. We are all gifted. What you do with that gift has been given to you in this lifetime. What you do with that gift is entirely up to you. It's your way. And It doesn't matter if you're not, there's just the true gift is that you can go into nature and you can connect to those trees. You can connect to those animals. I have so many animal experiences. My partner's got he's got a really popular podcast in the States called All Creatures Podcast. And that's how we met. All Creatures Podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
And he's just dedicated an episode this week to me. The dingoes in Australia, the dingo dogs.
Oh, yeah.
I had a beautiful experience with a dingo when I was in Australia 2 years ago. These are wild animals. It came up to me and it licked my face. It was like all over me.
Wow.
And, obviously it was in a wildlife sanctuary, but the wild animals tamed slightly, but it was just a beautiful, and he spoke about it today on his podcast, and I just relived it for a moment. I thought, the zookeepers were saying to me, these are wild animals. They're not like your domestic dog at home. They'll want to come and sniff you. They'll want to come and make sure you're not a threat because he's the alpha. Just had to like kneel down and like submissive, just keep my hands there and just like, and he came flying out of his den, was all over me.
Oh, interesting.
And even, she said, I've never seen that before. And the dog was 12, so it was like, there's many others that animals know. They know, they see your soul.
He knew you were safe and you were a fellow creature. Yes. Just a fellow creature, not, some scary human. Just a fellow creature.
What's been some of your best experiences with Tao? Like, I know you've been to China. I've been to China once and I really want to go back. What's been some of your favorite ones?
Well, when I go to China, I take groups there. I lead groups there, and we go up into the mountains. Because if you've been to China, the cities there, are huge, 20 million people and crazy traffic and crazy amount of people. But then when you leave, you go up in the mountains and it's more like old, ancient China. And there's one person. So I work with different Taoist teachers learning Qigong and things. But there's one guy that we go and visit. His name is Jaya, which means old grandfather. And he's a hermit who lives in a cave behind a temple. So in his cave, I've been in his cave. It's not a cave turned into an apartment or something. It's just a cave that he lives in, and there's a little shrine outside that he takes care of. And for many years, there was a hive of wild bees that lived outside of his cave. And he became known as the Bee Taoist. You can find him on YouTube. There's a few people that have filmed things and I have some footage. But he called them his Taoist friends. And when he was cooking, they would swarm around his head, but they never stung him. Recently, the wild hive swarmed away, so they're no longer there. But he doesn't speak any English. And when I talk to him, I have to go through a translator because I only speak a little Chinese. But he has this beautiful toothless grin. He's this little wizened guy. And he doesn't talk that much. And the last few times we've been there, I bring my group, we hike up through the forest to his cave. And he just comes out and he just beams at everyone in my group. And the last 2 times I visited him, I just sit across from him and he holds my hand the whole time. And he doesn't really talk that much and he means, but everyone in my group feels this transmission from him. And they're so happy when they're there with him when they leave. And it was like one of the high points of the whole trip was meeting Jaya. Because he's somebody who just has a very simple life. There's no electricity there or anything. He just lives a very simple life. And he doesn't go anywhere. He's been in this cave for 20 years or so. And he just sort of embodies that word embodied again. He doesn't try to teach us anything. He just bees himself and shares himself with us. And people feel something from that. A transmission.
It's like the silence as well. There's more power in a silent moment, isn't there? And that's...
Yeah, it's often.
I don't know if you probably heard of Eckhart Tolle. I truly believe he's an enlightened being on the planet because I don't think anything can kind of affect him in a negative way, even though he's really mastered his ego in a sense. Mm-hmm. But I love to talk, if you've noticed. So I love talking. Mm-hmm. I love teaching. I just love spreading light and love. And I remember watching Eckhart a couple of months ago and he just gets on the stage and he just sits for about a minute. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. Because most people, I think Tony Robbins, for example, he'd be on and be like clapping his hands. Oh, yeah. And he'd be like, come on, everybody. And it's great for motivation. But what I want and what I desire is that So I would definitely love to go to that cave, because I would just sit there in awe of just the silent, just holding someone's hand, like that in itself is beautiful.
It's very sweet. He didn't used to do that, but the last few times I've been there, he's done that, and I feel honored that he would hold my hand. So it's kind of interesting.
Maybe it's kind of like a bit of a healing moment for you. I mean, you've obviously heard of Reiki, so I'm a Reiki master, and I love helping people heal. You know, I do find it phenomenal sending it distantly as well. People don't understand you can send healing distantly, because again, Tao energy's everywhere. It's the intention. And since lockdown, I had a lot of clients coming to me for distant healing, and I've actually stuck to distant healing, because I find distant healing a lot more powerful than physical healing, because that person's in their own space, they're in their own environment, you know, they feel comfortable, you know, and it's I've just found it a lot more, you know, powerful. And especially with him touching your hand, that in itself is just a healing touch. Yeah. Well, you know, you mentioned finding me on Insight Timer, and anybody of your listeners who are Insight Timer, I have some courses on there. So I have one called Qigong for Troubled Times, and it teaches, they're just 10, 15-minute chapters, and teaches some Qigong, some really simple Qigong things that you can do for yourself at this point, because we all need healing always. And especially right now, it's a very stressful time on the planet. Yeah, it is.
We've got climate change, we've got COVID, you know, we've got all kinds of political problems going on. And some people get really affected by that, and they get so afraid of the world, and they don't have any tools. And so Qigong is a tool, and meditation is a tool. Yoga is a tool, so that you can feel more solid in yourself and feel more connected with Tao, or what we could just call source with a capital S. So if you don't want to use a Chinese term, for some people might find it weird or something, just use source. And we all want to connect to source, because that's where we come from, and that's where we go back. And the more disconnected you feel with source, the more troubled
you are. Yeah, it is. It's when I don't do my practices for a couple of days, I think, oh God, here we go. Like I start to feel it, and I think, but I do feel now sometimes I don't need to do as much, and I find a walk in nature is my meditation as well. It's, you know, sometimes I just go without my phone, you know, and it's magical. And there's some, I mean, obviously I used to want to live near the beach, and I love being near the ocean. I'm actually near the ocean now, near enough. So, but now as I've got older, 30, as I've matured and have become a bit wiser, I crave the quiet. I crave the, you know, going into nature. So I'm moving to New Zealand, and my partner's there at the moment. I haven't seen him since November last year, so that's been quite tough. Because of COVID, and obviously, you know, New Zealand's, you know, very native,
gorgeous.
I can't wait.
Beautiful places.
It's going to really sit well with me. It's going to, I think, from the way I see things, and I've seen the Tao and the Aborigine people and the Maori people, you know, over that side of the world, I'm going to absolutely love the place. And so I crave the quiet, you know, maybe like 30 minutes from the sea, but like up in the mountains, or, you know, where there's just grass, and all you can hear is the birds, all you can hear is nature. You know, because the beach can get crowded with people, and I'm not saying I don't like people. I just want quiet a lot of the time, and I think that's quite a powerful place to be. Oh, sure. Even politically, it's pretty good there, too. The prime minister, the woman there. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff happening. Yeah, there. She just needs to let families in now, because we all miss each other. I know. Well, none of us travel, you know, and I haven't been to China, and I'm looking forward to going to Taiwan next year. Oh, wow. Yeah. Nice. Taiwan is different. Taiwan is not a police state like it is in China. Politically, it's much more open. And I think, did I go to Taiwan? I think no, I went to Shanghai. I did. That's a big city. Yeah, God. I did Disney there, which was great. I went to the Great Wall, and we went to Xi'an. Xi'an is beautiful.
Xian. I don't know.
Xian.
Oh, Xian.
Xian, yeah.
X is spelled as a SH.
Yeah, Xian. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's where the terracotta warriors are and all
we
that.
did the terracotta warriors, and I felt a lot of energy there, a lot of energy. And we had this beautiful guide with us. She was so cute.
Oh, good.
And she took us round, and obviously my dad has business affairs in China, so we have a lot of connections in China, and he just sorted all the experiences out. The only downside was I wanted more time on the Great Wall. I just stood on the Great Wall. I thought to myself, oh my God, this is just the oldest thing I think I've stood on or like been around. And then I thought, how did they build this? Like I just was. And then we got the toboggan down, the fun ride, which is really cool.
I never saw that. I've never seen that. I've been to the wall a few times, but
I think I'd like to walk up and probably do a hike and maybe do some of the walk they do across it. It was kind of a rushed, not a rushed trip, but it was like a half a day thing. So we got the thingy up, the what's it called? Now
I can't think of it.
You know what I mean? The lift
kind
thing
of a
up,
lift thing that goes up.
The ski lift, and I don't like heights, and I remember just thinking, oh my God, I thought it'd be like an enclosed one, but it wasn't. It was like just a bar in front of you. Oh my God. And then I remember my sister saying, turn around, look at the view. And I'm like, I can't move. I remember just thinking,
I've been on those. Well, the terracotta warriors are even older than the wall. Because terracotta warriors go way, way, way back. And Xi'an was the capital in China during this dynasty called the Tang Dynasty, which is considered one of the most open, culturally artistic and beautiful periods of China's history.
It is fascinating. It's absolutely fantastic how they built all those warriors from, and then when you look at the faces, you think, God, that was a real life man.
Yeah, there are thousands of them. They've only unearthed a few hundred. And actually, when they found them, they were all in pieces.
Yeah, they put them back together.
People don't know that. They had to put them together like a puzzle. Because the guy whose tomb that is was a terrible despot. And when he died and his dynasty fell, people hated him so much. They went into his tomb and smashed all the warriors, all the soldiers. That's why they were in pieces.
Because is it right that his tomb now it's off grounds? They can't.
Well, there's part of it they had never opened because there's supposed to be rivers of mercury and all. And
apparently, there's the woman told us there could be booby traps in there, and I was like, "Oh, that's quite cool."
Lots of booby traps. So even modern archaeology, they never opened that tomb because they were afraid people would. For one thing, if there's actually rivers of mercury, they'll just be poisoned immediately, and then there's all kinds of booby traps and everything. But China has a very long history.
Oh yeah,
longer history than most. I mean, I live in the United States of America, which is not a very long history at all. What we consider antique here is from like 1800s.
That's why my partner's always loved England. He's always been a big fan of the UK. We've got a lot of great history here, but he's got a past life in Mongolia, so he's got a really pull to Mongolia. So there's a lot. I can't remember the general there or something. There's something to do with the general. I'll have to ask him later when I chat to him. But I think I was kind of there in that life with him, maybe. We've got go on.
The Mongolian people ruled China.
Yeah.
At one point, called the Yuan dynasty or the Mongolian dynasty. They ruled almost everything, and they ruled part of Europe, all over Asia, China. They were amazing people. And I have friends from a country called Tuva, which is north of Mongolia, and they're musicians. They do throat singing. So they taught me a little about how to do throat singing and stuff. And
I know you do music as well. I noticed that on your page. That's great.
Yeah, I use a lot of big Tibetan bowls and flutes and nature sounds.
I've just bought myself a tongue drum, so I've been practicing the tongue drum. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Oh yeah, I have one of those too. Is it the one that you use mallets, the smaller one?
Yeah, it's kind of like and it's got like cutouts and obviously and then there's the kalimba. I've ordered a kalimba. I've got a kalimba as well, which is just old, like kind of old. But I just have this real connection to music. I've always loved music, but now more so, I'm more connected to like earthy music and the sounds that we can create from more of natural things. But obviously, how can people find you? I know you've got your book. Is there anything else you want to kind of share?
I have a website.
Yeah.
A website is Abodao, abode, like home, ABODE, and then Dao spelled TAO.com.
Yeah.
And I have lots of free music and video and guided meditations, and then and articles about Taoism, because I used to publish a magazine for 25 years. I published the Taoist magazine, which I sold a few years ago. And there's stuff about my classes and stuff on there. There's all kinds of stuff that people can check out. And I'm all over Insight Timer.
Yeah, Insight Timer is where I found you. I will put all those links on the show notes as well. But
cool.
I don't want this conversation to end, to be honest. I could just sit and talk to you all day. But I know you've got loads of things to be doing.
Yes, I do have another appointment at 2:00 I need to go to.
Yes, brilliant. Yeah. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch. And I'd love my partner to chat to you at some point, and we'll do some more work with you in the future. And obviously, just I would probably class you as one of my teachers now.
Okay. That's fine.
Thank you so much, and I hope everyone's enjoyed it.
When you go live, when the podcast goes up, let me know.
Yes, I will, and I hope everyone enjoyed listening. And chat soon.
Okay.